why does having a family trust matter? That's what we're talking about. Why does having a family trust matter? This time around, y'all, the last video towards the middle or the end or something like the middle, the audio started crazy. Last video, audio started acting crazy. So what I'm gonna do this time is just maybe it was the energy. I know I was coming with some hot fire energy last time, for real. I had to get some shit off my chest because I'm just realizing competence matter. Competence matters. So in this video, in order to explain why you should have a trust, and to really show you how, like, without a family trust, your assets, your family's assets are really being managed and dealt with by other people, right? I'm going to just get a little bit more information on the powers of a trust, okay? I know I just spoke about it generally, but I think it's very important for people to know what's the powers of a trust. And when dealing with bills, because a lot of people, most people, including me a lot of times, one of the most important reasons for all of this is to be able to pay for things, right? To be able to make sure that we're properly paying for things and make sure that we're properly acquiring the assets that we wish to acquire, right? So in order to get this overstanding here and to paint this picture, I'm literally just gonna go over some information about trust authority, trust powers, fiduciary powers, information about, and we're gonna go over, extinguishment of debts, because that's when you essentially pay for debt. It's extinguishing a debt, it's to wipe out a debt, right? We're gonna go over what that means, and at the high level, gonna show you how this is just accounting, and also gonna show how, cash, or the way you look at cash, the way you look at cash is a limited perspective for the most part, unless you are including all monetary instruments in your idea of cash. Your idea of cash is limited, and that may be why you perceive that your money is funny. And then for those of us who know our money is not funny and we're dealing with a lot of assets, now we really have to exercise this knowledge, and that is what wisdom is. Exercise this knowledge to bring about the proper balancing of accounts. You feel me? That's the best way to put it. All right. So let me get into the scenario. All right. All right. So first and foremost, we're going to get into fiduciary. All right. What is a fiduciary? Here we can see fiduciary is a person who holds a legal or ethical relationship of trust with one or more other parties. Typically, a fiduciary prudently takes care of money or other assets for another person. Okay, in a trust, we realized earlier that you have to have a grantor, which is a party who's providing assets to a secondary party. The person who they're providing that assets to is the trustee. That trustee is the fiduciary in a trust. Okay, so that fiduciary, that trustee has the fiduciary capacity, right? They have the capacity to manage these assets for another person, and they have to do this in accordance with laws and in accordance with the rules that's set up in the trust, right? So what it's saying is one party, for example, a corporate trust company or a trust department of a bank or your family, right? They entrust funds. Funds could be any asset that has an economical value. I think that's the most important part of money in life, is to realize everything has an economic value. So everything is an asset and everything could be monetized. It's a beautiful world when you realize that the world begins to be beautiful within you. And then we see, I guess, a purpose for this timeline. A purpose for this moment in time is to bring that beauty external and to share with the world the fact that the systems as they are, they allow for that wealth to be, exchanged. So bringing that to light, bringing that fact to light, that there's all types of forms of money, and that we as a people collectively and individually, we can utilize these sources of funds. That's probably one of the greatest things in this lifetime to share to people, regardless of whether people are open to receiving it, regardless of whether they're receiving it well, regardless of the process of reception. Even I know, and I experience it a lot. That's why I attempt to distance myself from a lot of people, not even against them, but I noticed that it's a lot of misunderstanding. People could take you really, really wrong when you're trying to bring them some information and let them know, hey, bro, you already got the value. You already wealthy. You really have it. Now we just have to enforce it. It seems like a lie when you telling some people that they're valuable, or, they have documentation that's even evidence in their value. Because a lot of fiduciaries, right, a lot of individuals who have trusty relationships in this world, they don't always have the total knowledge of how to deal with these types of assets. But let's just get into this a little bit, right? Fiduciary is someone who has undertaken to act for or on behalf of another person, a particular manner and circumstance which give rise to a relationship of trust and confidence. So the trust is a relationship, confidence is a relationship. So you have to extend trust to a party when you extend them the responsibility to manage your assets or the responsibility to do something for you, right? That's trust that's extended. Confidence is extended to that party in order for them to handle their business. And then you have duties. Fiduciaries, of course, have duties. These are the things that they have to do in order to carry out their task, right? So fiduciary duties in the financial sense exist to ensure that those who manage other people's money act in their beneficial interests rather than serving their own interests. So the duties and the responsibilities of the trustee are really there to make sure that the trust property is managed the best way for the beneficiaries. And the beneficiaries is whoever the trust set up the beneficiaries to be, right? To be the family members in this case, specific members, specific companies. That's the situation. Now let's look into trustee authority a little here. The goal is not to be long-winded right now. That's not the goal. The goal is to just bring so much information that people feel like they got too much information. The goal is to paint a picture as to why you should have a trust. What does the trust actually do? What's their capabilities? Once you can see their capabilities and their powers associated with the trust, then you can see the utility, like how you can use that trust to benefit yourself and others in your world that you operate with, right? About the family, the purpose of was for themselves. It's possible to manage their assets, preserve their assets for themselves and for the future generations. So, so sounds like it's all choppy, but it's here. No, not right. I don't know what's going on with this audio body over here. Okay. Let me attempt to keep going and see how this goes. Let's just see how this goes. All right. Understanding trustee authority, right? A guide to trust management. So, trustee responsibility. A trustee, whether an individual or an entity, plays a vital role in managing and administering your trust according to your wishes and state laws, right? As fiduciaries, they are held to a high standard of care, ensuring the best interest of beneficiaries. That's what they're supposed to be doing. They need to make sure that the beneficiaries are cared for in accordance with law, right? Now, this is important, so let's make sure that in accordance with law, right? Okay, cool. Sound like the audio is cool, all right? So the trustee's authority to sell assets is important, right? So the key responsibilities are protecting the trust investments, maintaining accounting records. Accounting records are the basis of money, and preparing tax-related forms, right? Now, they have an authority to sell assets. The trustee may need to liquidate assets for various reasons. Liquidation of assets, y'all, by the way, it's essentially, it's like money magic. It's like when you have an asset and you want to make that asset a form of money. Okay, that's called liquidation. You are going to utilize the value of the assets because all assets have an economic value. It's a measurement of its worth. So it's when you say, okay, this asset, if your car, place, cup, idea, whatever. Say this asset is worth this much economically. Since it's worth this much, let's use what it's worth. Let's use that value. Let's liquidate that value so that that value could be used to either buy something or pay off a debt, to acquire another asset. Now remember, in that conversation, the asset was not what we were using to pay off the debt. It's the value of the asset. So how do you go about liquidating assets? That's through securitization. That's by turning that value into a security. Once that value is a security, then when you document the ownership of that security becomes a security entitlement. When you have a security entitlement and you document it and you deposit that security entitlement, now that becomes a financial asset. So we have assets. Assets have value. The value, once documented, becomes a security. When you document ownership of that security, you have a security entitlement. And when that security entitlement is deposited or transferred to an account, it could be your trust account, when it's transferred to an account, now that security entitlement is actually a financial asset. And once something's a financial asset, that thing is a monetary instrument. So that's the process of liquidation, right? So for various reasons, a trustee may want to liquidate some assets. Although trustee decisions must align with prudent investor rules and benefit beneficiaries, formal beneficiary approval is generally not required for asset liquidation. Okay. However, it says trustees may seek approval of beneficiaries to avoid potential disputes. So here goes more information on creating liquidity. A trustee may need to create liquidity for financial obligations, administrative costs, distributions, or responding to opportunities or challenges, right? So you got opportunities in the market or opportunities in the world, and you want to maximize those opportunities. Like they say, hey, you can buy this house, it's only this much, or you can invest in this, it's only this much. And you want to maximize that opportunity. So you may look to say, okay, what assets do we have here? Okay, we got some intellectual property, you may got some copyrights, some trademarks, you got some MP3, you got some videos, you have any content. All of these things are assets may want to securitize those assets, create the proper documentation and evidence that you are the owner of those assets. Assess the value of those assets. Once you assess the value of those assets, you get to determine the current valuation for the asset, economic value. Once that's established, you get to take that value, if you so choose to, and you can document that you have entitlements, right? You got the security entitlement, you deposit that, you have a financial asset. Now that financial asset, you can get busy and deal with it as if it's money, because it is. It's a monetary instrument, these securities, right? It's a simple process that's complex in operations due to two factors: due to the type of financial institutions that, for the most part, we're dealing with. The rules and regulations that's in place are typically not as simple when we're dealing with institutions in order to get this done. Nevertheless, when you're administering your rights yourself with your trusteeship, you're administering these rights, you may be able to just utilize the core principles in the most efficient manner that works for you, that works for your family. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, the liquidation of assets is real. And a lot of times it makes you feel like you ain't got assets, but that ain't true. If you don't got them, you just probably haven't documented them. You need to document them or create more, intellectual property, negotiable instruments, promissory notes, bills of exchange, value, documents and value for yourself, right? So this is things that the trustees can do. They can provide investment strategies, right? Controlling the sale of trust assets. So trust makers, or the grantors or whatever, they can provide guidelines that control the sale of assets and say, hey, these certain assets can be sold, or these can't be sold, or this is how they can be sold, or when they can be sold. Yet, it's very important, this family trust, right? Why you should have one is because these are things that matter to you and everybody in your family. Most people are going through situations and they're having to deal with them on their own or within their own household. Yet, you have a family trust set up, and the family trust is actually responsible for handling all these things for all the parties, all the beneficiaries. Meaning, the beneficiaries won't have to handle this for themselves. That's really why governments were set up. That's really why these systems were set up, so that other parties, other administrators, they would handle these certain aspects of business on behalf of other parties, right? Now, if they're not handling their responsibilities, up to par, up to the will of the beneficiaries, and the beneficiaries have the right to establish other trusts, have different trustees operate, can be seeing contracts, do whatever you need to make sure that the people who manage your assets, managing your interests, are doing so in accordance with your best interests. All right. Let's take a look at a couple of more things here. This just goes into duties and powers of a trust a little bit more. Yeah, it can become daunting or whatnot as far as the task. There's a lot of possibilities, a lot of responsibilities, and a lot of duties attached to it, a lot of authorities as well attached to it. You have contracting power and contracting authority as a trustee. And the amount of contract authority you have is a lot. It's equal to the value of the assets, and it can extend the value. It can be more than the value of the assets, but you might also have the authority to acquire more assets, to issue debt, to receive more assets, to be able to raise more assets, things of that nature, right? So, that's cool. The classifications of trusts and powers. Okay, there's all types of trust. You got express trust, you got implied trust, you got foreign trust, domestic trust, statutory trust, cosmic trust, religious trusts, commercial trusts, all types of trust, or all types of relationships where assets are being managed for all types of reasons, right? Discretionary trust, right? The court can intervene where the domain of the power exercises is fraudulent. Where the domain of the power exercises is fraudulent. Okay, cool. So anytime you have power you're exercising, if you could, when you're doing that in a fraudulent manner, of course, become a right. That's what they're saying here. Judiciary powers have to be appointed. They can be appointed through express consent or implicit consent, right? But you want to make sure that you have trustees in your trust that understand the goal of your trust, that are competent to carry out the duties. And yes, most times you gotta pay that trustee, just like you're paying a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, assistant, administrator, because what they do, they're rendering value. So when they're rendering value, value is due in return, right? For every amount of value that they're putting out, they should get it back. And there's costs associated with a lot of the things that they do, right? For you and for the family. So this is one of the biggest aspects if you think about getting rid of debts. However you choose to get rid of the debts, whether you endorse it, securities, right? You can endorse negotiable instruments to a party and provide them with that value, discharge of debt, whether you paying them in full with a certain cash or cash equivalent or another monetary instrument, financial instrument. Let's look at this real quick. Just a little simple, quick, and straight to the point. For example, when we talk about extinguishing debts, we talk about when we talk about extinguishing debts, we're talking about paying things off. And this item not working good, that's fucked up. I have to do something about that. Yeah, so extinguishment. As I said, all of this is accounting for the most part. All of this is accounting. All of this is accounting, right? That's what money is. It's accounting for value. It's a medium of exchange that allows you to exchange value. Yet that's all about accounting, measuring value, exchanging value, giving value, receiving value. Extinguishment again is when debts are wiped out, right? So to extinguish debt is like paying for a debt, right? If it's done, right? So the debtor, so here we go. A liability has been extinguished if either of the following conditions is met. Now this is key. This is important because you might have a debt, maybe a mortgage debt, maybe a car debt, maybe a credit card debt, maybe all types of debts, right? All types of debts. Now the debtor, the moment the debtor pays the creditor, payment can happen in many ways. Payment can happen in many ways. Okay, it says when the debtor pays the creditor and is relieved of its obligation for the liability. Okay, that's wicked. Okay, you relieved of your obligation the moment you pay. Okay, and paying the creditor includes the following. So all of these things are methods of paying the creditor. Right? Let's look at this. This is key. Delivery of cash. So that's one way. That's one way to pay a creditor off. Deliver them cash. Cash is all types of cash. Currency cash, foreign currency is cash. Okay. Promissory notes issued by sovereign entities are called cash. Okay. That's what cash is. Promissory notes issued by sovereign entities is called cash. Right. The delivery of other financial assets. So there's all types of financial assets that we have learned about in this world, y'all. There's all types of financial assets. And as we can see here, delivery of a financial asset is payment. So if we could deliver a financial asset, and that means we can pay something, then that means you don't need cash. Cash flow to pay something. Delivery of goods or services. provide a good of equal value or a service of equal value, then that's payment. Reacquisition by the debtor of its outstanding debt securities, whether the securities are canceled or held as so-called treasury funds. Now, this part is deep. When you reacquire debt securities, those are, it can be bonds, notes, promissory notes. When you reacquire them, that's called a payment. How could that be so? Think about it. Well, first off, the outstanding debt instrument, that's like, I promised to pay you $1,000, so I sent you this promissory. Right? Now, when it's due, it's like, okay, it's time to pay. Time to pay. Well, payment, you can do that through reacquiring that promissory note you sent, or reacquiring that bond, or reacquiring that note, or reacquiring that application, reacquiring that mortgage note, reacquiring that retail installment note, reacquiring it, redeeming the bond from the court case. All of that stuff is the same principle as number 4. Reacquisition by the debtor of its outstanding debt securities, whether the securities are canceled or whether the securities are held as so-called treasury bonds. Now you can reacquire by redemption, reacquire by claiming, reacquire by issuing value that's equivalent to that value in exchange for that security. But that's all payment. Those are all types of payments, and it gets really deep when you start to look at your life and you look at the types of security, paperwork, and bills or credit card bills, mortgage bills that you have, and you realize, wow, all of this paperwork is financial assets. Wow, it's telling me I can reacquire the debt security. So if this is the debt security, by reacquiring it by issuing the debt payment, by simply delivering them any financial asset that is of equal value or greater value, that's any financial asset. Okay, what is a financial asset? We went over this. So, okay, this whole 16-part series really is just me to get this off my chest one time, because I've been communicating this probably for 18 years in different parts of situations, and I realized I no longer want to communicate this level of knowledge. I am ready to simply execute the high level operations that are being executed. And when somebody wants to know this, I'm just going to refer them to the video, whether or not they if they comprehend, it's up to them. I may help comprehension, but whether or not they take it serious, that's up to them. But I know without a shadow of a doubt, the collective for these 16 videos, some of just one video is enough to crack the code. Really going on. But what is it? Financial asset is a liquid asset. It's like a contractual right or ownership claim. So you got a right, a right to do anything, right? You say, like that's one way people describe assets. You see they have but they go for something that idea feel like they got no money, system ain't working, you work hard as well. You work with and you just need to increase your capacity to know. So if a financial asset is a liquid asset that gets its value from a contractual right or ownership claim, then the source of the value is what? contractual right, right? That is written in a contract. And then you evaluate how much is that right. So for all people and beings and humanity in the world, I would ask you a question. Do you have any right? Do you have any rights? Do you think you have any rights? If you believe you have rights, maybe you should document them, assess the value of those rights, because when you do that, you might have to live with that. You got the right to cross the street, you got the right to get your contract, you got the right to blink, you got the right to move your arms, you got the right to hug somebody, you got the right to kill somebody, regardless of whether you heard any things. You just got to use your knowledge. Documented contract rights, documented every ownership is a source of value from liquid assets. In a lot of countries, a lot of banking systems, they'll tell you that liquid assets are these financial instruments that have maturity dates, sometimes less than a year. So they say, like when the payment of the instrument needs to be made, determines the liquidity of the instrument. A ability for that instrument to be exchanged for value determines the liquidity of that instrument. As we're learning here, though, as we see all over the world, all over the world, money, that any financial asset, essentially, as we read here, living the financial asset is payment. So it may you may be right if you said all of your financial assets are liquid due to the fact that they can be exchanged for value to offset debts, to extinguish debts. But if you don't believe, you don't know it, and you don't act like it, if you don't enforce it, you might not experience the benefits, the blessings of it. And that's just what it is. So that's kind of deep, really, when you think about it. Humanity for the most part, is looking for money, looking for wealth, looking for prosperity, and these structures of a trust clearly has it all in it. Clearly can use all these types of financial assets to pay off debts, to buy things, to acquire assets, to get the job done. So without a family trust, you don't have any entity, any organization that's literally looking at the account of all of the members, not just you, but all of the members, bills, everything, bills, expenses, houses, cars, clothes, everything. What's their monthly bills and everything? And instead of trying to find some amazing ass sauce, like everybody, what's the method, what's the remedy, instead of trying to find some get rich quick method, you may want to realize that you're already wealthy and you really just have to start to exercise count, issue them pieces of paper, send them on over to them, tell them that it's paid according to the law. They act like it's not, sue the motherfuckers. Oh, when we're talking about that, it just it just brings us to realize the purpose of certain institutions, such as bankruptcy courts, the liquidation of third-party on behalf of the creditor. That's enforcement. Enforcement. A lot of the reason why people still think they're And they may do step one or two, which is think they're valuable, perceive they're valuable. They may think they heard of a sauce, meaning a method of getting something done. They may use the sauce, the paper, template, or whatever, try to send that out to pay off something. And then if the bill collector or the car company or the mortgage company acts like they didn't get paid, they feel like the sauce didn't work or they didn't, the process doesn't work. Well, that's only relevant if you don't realize enforcement is part of life. And that's what bankruptcy courts are here for and other courts that allow you to sue people so you can liquidate value and take it back that could legally lawfully be extinguished in court jurisdiction. So let's talk about this stuff. Right? If you have access, or your family members have access, like promissory notes, rules of exchanges, all types of security, third party assets, you want to make a claim for it, or a claim in bankruptcy, fine, the right to payment. It's just the right. If you have the right to receive payment, do you have the right to give payment? If you have the obligation to give payment, cool. You have the right for payment. They may have, they may owe you some money. See somebody owe you something. You have a right to pay. You have a claim. Whether or not reduced to judgment, liquidated, unliquidated, fixed, contingent, matured, unmatured, disputed, undisputed, legal, equitable, secure, or unsecured. They said any right to payment is a claim. Or B, a right to an equitable remedy for breach of performance if such breach gives rise to a right to payment. So, if someone did not do what they were supposed to do, if a company or a bank or an organization or institution or anything doesn't do what they were supposed to do according to contract, they breached their performance, and that creates it a right for you to collect some money, then you have a claim against them as well. As you can see here, debt is defined as a liability on a claim. So there's a claim, who's liable to pay that claim back. So then that's evidence of a debt. All of this is about money. So if somebody owes you, they have paid you, claim in bankruptcy. Go ahead and liquidate some of their assets, you get paid. Or to file the claim, the claim will give file the claim, win the claim, get paid. Okay? That's the creditor's rights. So if you're not going to utilize your rights as a creditor, a lot of these debtors are going to just continue to act like they don't owe you. And if you're the debtor in the situation, you're utilizing your rights, you're liquidating your rights, taking their value brand wise, dumb as fuck, only thinking that the certain dollars issued by certain countries and entities are money. Wake up and realize all of this is money. All of these monetary instruments are money. All of these financial assets. You might realize you're wealthy. Predators. Yeah, all I want to say about trust and the third aspect of this trust is learning how to push your power, right? You go to that 7,000%. Just don't let you know all the laws is there. hand them and they're acting like they didn't get paid, you might not be enforcing your rights. But if you are established in your trust, handling your trustee duties, your fiduciary duties effectively, properly accounting for the value you have and the debts that you have, properly extinguishing those debts by delivering the financial assets, properly accounting for those accounts, ensuring that the creditors had balanced the books in accordance to law, and or properly enforcing your rights to utilize these right-based assets, claim-based monetary instruments in order to pay things. If you're doing all of that, then you're good in the hood, good in every hood. If you ain't good, you don't be good. Keep it up. If you ain't doing it, get with the program. Or get with somebody that's with the program. Pay them what they deserve while you learn what you learn. Either way, the information is here. It's clearly free. You can Google it, learn it on your own. Let people know it. One time for the one time.
Are you tired of being subjected to rules and regulations that do not serve you or your family? Are you willing to go against the grain in the name of wisdom, freedom, family, honor, and trust? We provide simple solutions to complex problems. Take control of your own affairs in life. Tribe Up with Tribes and Trusts TV.
On our mission now, your time is up. Took us 400 years, had to size you up. Our word is born, no more dividing us. We now know what to do with all these tribes and trusts. I'm overseas with these tribes and trusts. Don't need no other keys but these tribes and trusts. Frequency sovereignty with these tribes and trusts. Watch me get families free with these tribes and trusts. Overstepping your boundaries, I balance you. I'm bona fide, fuck a challenger. Sent the revocation certified, fuck a manager. In control of my soul, fuck a handler. All these assets that's held for the tribes and trusts. Prophecies get fulfilled with the tribes and trusts. Heard they get out of jail with the tribe and trust. Fuck around, get you nailed for the tribe and trust. On our mission now, your time is up. Took us 400 years, had to size you up. Our word is born, no more dividing us. We now know what to do with all these tribes and trusts. I'm overseas with these tribes and trusts. Don't need no other keys but these tribes and trusts. Frequency sovereignty with these tribes and trusts. Watch me get families free with these tribes and trusts. Tribing up, we 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 tribing up with these tribes and trusts. We tribing up, 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 we tribing up with these tribes and trusts. We tribing up, put the tribe in the trust, manifesting this work with the tribe and trust. Resurrected myself with these tribes and trusts. Ancestors left us these tribes and trusts. The people is rising up, yeah. Free all the guys from cuffs. Tribes and trusts, rising up with tribes and trusts.
You heard the Mansa. Tribe up and take care of your own affairs in life. Your life depends on it. Your future depends on it. Your family depends on it. Establish your family tribes and trusts with Kyle Mansa, founder of Love Nation American Indians. If you need advanced or rush services, schedule a consultation.